Okay, and we are now rolling. Boy, have we got some news for you. Probably not the news you are wanting to hear. Of course, you're probably not surprised at the news. Pac-12 postpones all sports through end of year. Pac-12 CEO group voted unanimously Tuesday to postpone all sports, including football and basketball, through the end of the year. In a statement, the Pac-12 said if conditions related to the coronavirus improve, it would consider a return to competition after January 1, 2021. The health and safety and well-being of our student athletes and all those connected to Pac-12 sports has been our number one priority since the start of this current crisis, said Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott in a statement. Our student athletes, fans, staff, and all those who love college sports would like to have seen the season played this calendar year as originally planned. And we know how disappointing this is. Impacted Pac-12 student athletes will continue to have their scholarships guaranteed. The conference is also encouraging the NCAA to grant students who opt out of playing this academic year an additional year of eligibility. The league's medical advisory group had concerns that many of its current recommendations cannot be achieved consistently across all universities at this point in time. Currently, the availability of frequent FDA-approved, accurate testing with rapid turnaround time vary at each of the Pac-12 institution locations. In addition, in many locations within the conference, community test positivity rates and number of cases per 100,000 in the surrounding community exceeded levels which infectious disease and public health officials deem safe for group sports. The medical advisory group said it is anticipated over the next few months rapid point of care tests will become more available and we will have a greater understanding of potential short and long-term health effects of COVID-19 to better inform the medical decision making. Scott said in a news conference Tuesday that many factors went into the decision, including the fact that creating a bubble like some pro sports have done was impossible for them. Our student athletes are part of a broader campus communities, Scott said. Student athletes are living with peer students on campus, interacting, and enough questions and concerns have been raised that we didn't feel comfortable moving forward. Last month, in the wake of the same decision from the Big 10, the Pac-12 announced it would proceed with a conference-only football schedule to begin September 26. The Pac-12's decision to cancel the fall schedule Tuesday again follows the same decision from the Big 10, which announced that it would cancel fall sports about an hour into the Pac-12's CEO group meeting. The CEO group is made up of a chancellor or president from each of the conference's 12 universities and is the ultimate decision maker for the Pac-12. So there's the news that you have concerning more cancellation. I had spoke on a radio show yesterday morning and said you could see the writing on the wall. It started with the MAC conference, and I'm sticking with my statement. Then the Mountain West became the second FBS conference to say it's a no-go. Which made it easier, even though it was inevitable that one of the Power 5 conferences was going to do it. But it also goes back to a statement that no one wanted to be first, which is why come think it was someone from the Big 10 or maybe the Pac-12 said, if the other Power 5 conferences are on board with us. See, that right there is saying that no one wanted to be first. So eventually someone went first, and it was the MAC, the MAC. Then secondly was the Mountain West. 2 FBS conferences, which then made the decision easier, although you probably won't ever hear no admission or a confession of sorts. But by the MAC and the Mountain West coming out and doing what they did, then that made it easier. And of course, there was a lot of anticipation that whatever happens is going to be after the Pac-12 and Big 10 make their decisions to do what they've done. But yet, we don't know what the SEC is going to do because some of their coaches are on board with playing this season. And even though the Big 10 is included in this article as well, there are still some coaches in that conference saying we will explore all options, even if it means playing elsewhere. So now the question becomes, and I'm pretty sure there will be some legalities involved in that. Would the Big 10 let any of their schools play outside of the conference? Without it being borderline, let's just say it, tampering? I mean, you don't hear that terminology in college football, but let's just play devil's advocate. Nebraska playing in the Big 12 for a season. Remind you also that I believe they had OU on their schedule, if not this season, next season. And who in the Big 12, as much as they've been moaning about it, who in the Big 12 wouldn't mind seeing Nebraska back in the Big 12 where they probably really belong? The only reason they're not coming back is the money that's involved. It's more financially suitable for them to remain in the Big 10 than it is for them to come back to the Big 12. Michigan, they want to play. Harbaugh said, if you look at data, and you've heard this quite a bit, that you're more likely to get involved in a car crash on your way to practice than you are contracting the coronavirus. He says, according to data, he thinks they're safe to play. So is Michigan on the same bandwagon with Nebraska? Once again, would the Big 10 allow that, knowing that they have nixed their football season as well either? So the report goes on and says, Big 10 nixes fall and college football season and eyes spring.
Instant reaction to this major news in the college football landscape.
Well, it's not surprising. I think the presidents went down the hall and they talked to their lawyers and they said, okay, with not knowing as much as we do about the COVID, with this new revelation coming out that COVID can have an adverse effect against large human beings as far as their cardiovascular system, they asked the lawyers, can we do this without having huge liability on the back end? And the lawyers simply said no. And so it was an easy decision for the presidents once this information came out. Let's remember, a few weeks ago, the Big 10 came out with a new schedule. Here's when we're going to start. Here's when we're going to play. But when this new revelation came out about how COVID could affect larger human beings and their cardiovascular system, you think about the liability. Think about the concussion lawsuit that the NFL and the players dealt with, because the NFL players said years ago, we didn't know the long-term effects. We didn't know the adverse effects, and it cost the NFL billions. Quite frankly, college institutions just can't afford that. And so it's no surprise that they're punting to the spring until we can find out some more information.
So the question is, what are potential ramifications of a spring college football season? Let's hear this.
Really that certain that 4 months from now, things are going to be in a decidedly healthier and safer space for college athletes on campuses with tens of thousands of other students?
Well, look, this is massive. I mean, we're talking about the Big 10 at this point, canceling its football season, postponing it to spring. I mean, let's consider like the repercussions not only on the college game, but hey, this is NFL Live, on the NFL moving forward. Now, I mentioned earlier that I don't think the NFL stops for anybody, but still the ramifications, as Mike Tannenbaum has kind of alluded to as well, from the scouting, from the idea of trying to find these gems that break out in a season, all of a sudden we don't have that anymore. So whether we're in a situation in a few months where they can have the college football season or not, to me, it feels too late when it comes to next year's NFL draft for them to be able to go through a spring season and then enter the draft if it's on time. This, I think, will have major ramifications, major impact on the future of NFL rookies. It'll throw the draft completely into flux. I think it's going to be a very fascinating, interesting year ahead if this continues to be a trend in college football. This is major, guys.
Now, in my opinion, spring college football, that doesn't even have a ring to it. I'm trying to just wrap my thing around college football in the spring. You also have, let me see, you're most likely going to start probably sometime in March. You're crossing into March Madness. To me, there's going to have to be a whole lot of maneuvering around. I don't think it can be done successfully. I mean, there's no explanation to be given. Successfully, it cannot be done. First of all, you have some NFL prospects, the timing of which, like the panel said, the draft will be thrown into an influx. You just simply can't do that. No. For me to even try to come up with an explanation, the only explanation is no. It cannot be done successfully. Look at what you're facing. You are facing, like I said, March Madness. You also know right around the corner, college baseball, women's softball. Why would you even want to take away from that? Flat out, no. But anyway, Big 10 nixes fall college football season, eyes spring. Big 10 conference presidents and chancellors voted Tuesday to postpone all fall sports season, including football, amid the coronavirus pandemic, with the hopes of playing in the spring. All decisions we would make during my tenure here will always put the mental and physical health and wellness of our student athletes at the center. Big 10 Commissioner Kevin Warren told Big 10 Network, "We just believe collectively there is too much uncertainty at this point in time in our country to encourage our student athletes to participate in fall sports. It doesn't mean that we're giving up forever. We continually have to gather information and look forward to the future. But there's so much uncertainty. This is a very, very trying time. This is one of those days you really hope in your career you never have to deal with these kinds of issues. But that's not the case in life. We have to deal with the issues presented in front of us." Later, Tuesday, Pac-12 presidents and chancellors followed Big Ten's lead and also voted to postpone the conference fall sports season, including football. Stadium was the first to report the Pac-12's decision. On Sunday, ESPN first reported that Big Ten presidents, following a meeting on Saturday, were ready to cancel the fall sports season, and they wanted to gauge whether Commissioners, university presidents, and chancellors from the other Power 5 conferences, the ACC, Big 12, and SEC, will follow in line with them. Officials with the ACC and SEC have indicated they plan to proceed with the season this fall, but it's unclear whether the Big 10's decision will change those plans. As for the Big 12, it's not entirely clear what the conference's intentions are, as some of its member schools seem to be divided on whether to play this fall or try to go in the spring. In making its decision, the Big 10 said it relied on the medical advice and counsel of the Big 10 Task Force for Emerging Infectious Disease and the Big 10 Sports Medicine Committee. Our primary responsibility is to make the best possible decisions in the interest of our student, faculty, and staff, Morton Shapiro, the chair of the Big 10 Council of Presidents, Chancellors, and Northwestern University president, said in a statement. The University of Nebraska, after Cornhuskers coach Scott Frost on Monday said his program is prepared to look at any and all options in order to play this fall, issued a joint statement Tuesday saying, "We are very disappointed in the decision by the Big 10. We have been and continue to be ready to play," said the joint statement from Nebraska Chancellor Ronnie Green, President Ted Carter, Athletic Director Bill Moss, and Frost. Safety comes first. Based on the conversations with our medical experts, we continue to strongly believe the absolute safest place for our student athlete is within the rigorous safety protocols, testing procedures, and the structure and support provided by Husker Athletics. We hope it may be possible for our student athletes to have the opportunity to compete. Warren, who on Tuesday said he took Frost's statement as a point of passion, would not say where the vote to cancel the fall season was unanimous. Our schools, we don't always agree, but people understand that we will be together in the Big 10, Warren said. Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh also expressed disappointment in the decision. Our student athletes and coaches want to compete, he said in a statement. They have committed, trained, and prepared their entire lives for this opportunity, and I know how much they're disappointed at this time. I share in their disappointment today. Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith said he and University President-elect Christina Johnson were in agreement to delay the start of the fall sports season instead of postponing to the spring. This is an incredibly sad day for our student athletes who have worked so hard and been so vigilant fighting against this pandemic to get this close to their season, Smith said. My heart aches for them and their families. President-elect Johnson and I were totally aligned in our efforts to delay the start of the season rather than postpone. I am so grateful to her for all her efforts in support of our student athletes in a traditional fall season. As an institution and as an athletic department, we have a responsibility first and foremost to care for the health, safety, and wellness of our students and staff, and I believe we have done that successfully. Buckeyes quarterback Justin Fields, considered a Heisman Trophy contender and a top 4 NFL draft prospect by ESPN analyst Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay, made his feelings known about the Big 10 decision on Twitter. Simply said, he would put the words SMH, shaking my head. It's still unclear how the decision by the Big 10 and Pac-12 will impact the college football playoff. Any decisions about the structure or format of the 14 playoff are made by the CFP Board of Managers, which is composed of 11 university presidents and chancellors, including Penn State's Eric Barron and Washington State's Kirk Schultz. It's too soon to say what the implications will be. CFP Executive Director Bill Hancock told ESPN, "We will wait for guidance from the CFP Board and Management Committee. Besides football, other sports affected are men's and women's cross country, field hockey, men's and women's soccer, and women's volleyball." The COVID-19 has impacted every aspect of our lives, both personally and professionally. For many students and staff, it has brought anxiety and stress, and we are all looking forward to a time when things begin to look and feel more normal. University of Wisconsin Chancellor Rebecca Blank and Athletic Director Barry Alvarez said in a joint statement, "For many months, we had hoped that the return of fall collegiate sports might be an opportunity to restore some sense of normalcy and provide brighter moments. Even so, today's decision by the Big 10 to postpone the fall 2020 sports season is the correct one." So there you have it, the Pac-12, Big 10. So far we have 4 conferences all together that have postponed their seasons. So, what's next? You almost don't want to ask that question, what's next? What is the Big 12 going to do? They're not in unity on what they want to do. Some want to play, some don't want to play. But it looks very strong like the SEC wants to play, as well as does the ACC. So now, I want to pose this question. If, by chance, there is no college football, what does the NFL do? Think about this prospect. I know some when you hear this, you're probably going to bust out laughing. But this is my theory. If you look at the NBA is playing in a bubble. You don't hear too many positive COVID tests. MLS, Major League Soccer, is playing in a bubble. They seem to be making it through their season. NHL is playing in a bubble. You're not hearing no reports of contracting the virus. The WNBA. But then you have MLB. Miami Marlins have an outbreak. I believe the St. Louis Cardinals dealing with it. Major League Baseball is not playing in a bubble, which means they're heightening the risk of contracting the virus. So, should the NFL consider playing in a bubble? I know you're probably saying, well, how can they do that? Well, for one, you're going to have to realign and restructure the conferences as we know it to be. If I'm correct, there's 32 teams in the NFL, so you can divide those up by 4 and have them in regional bubbles. Which also means if you do it that way, you can almost play games Monday night, Thursday night, Saturday, and Sunday in all 4 bubbles. Something to think about. Until next time, take care of yourself.